Yes, but not everyone has the same schedule or the same kind of. If you've ever responded to free advice, to something that is like some helpful advice, somebody is trying to give you something beneficial, and your response is like, yes, but, and you try to defend that you are the exception, not the rule. First off, same. And you're probably in the majority. Like, we all do that. Really quick, without further ado, apologies for any road noise and shaky cam, but that's kind of the point of this video, is talking about capitalizing on the time that we do have. I am currently working. I am currently trying to make some money, and I also, these thoughts are very fresh, so I can either write them down later and risk not getting around to them, or I could take the time right now, do my best to put it out there, and maybe still revisit it later. But anyway, I was listening to a video by Dr. Izzy Seeley. I've mentioned her before. Her channel's incredible. Highly recommend checking it out. But she was talking about how she said she calculated on average, she said if she was to look at the time after her workday was done until she went to bed, and you look at that time at the end of your evening. So in her case, she was referring to it as like romanticizing her 5 to 9, right? We have the 9 to 5 grind, and this is the 5 to 9. This is when you get out of work. And she talked a lot about productivity. She talked about engaging in social media, doom scrolling and brain rot and such, and trying to avoid that, winding down, all these different things. Anyway, and she said, like, over the course of her life, looking at average life expectancy, XYZ, different factors, 50,000 hours roughly can be found in those evenings, right? After the work day is over. And she was offering ways to take control and claim that time and put it towards living your best life. Some things, it wasn't necessarily like, this is how you become a millionaire and use your downtime. It was actually not pushing the grind and productivity as much as it was pushing being present and actually like having a fulfilling life that you enjoy, like living the life you're trying to live, which, yeah. But one of the comments that popped up was somebody saying, yes, but like not everybody has the same after work. Some people have to go home and cook for themselves, and some people have this and this, and I'm thinking like, okay, there's commutes and stuff too. This is all valid. This is all so true. But my point, and the thing I want to draw the most attention to here, is that she's offering free advice, and she's offering a lot of different considerations and factors, and how it's not going to be the same for everyone else, nor should it be. But like, what you should take away from her video is a mental reframe saying, holy crap, there is time there, and this is how I'm wasting my time, going on TikTok for 2.5 hours. And she talks about the psychology around the way these apps are designed, to basically rob you of your focus and your mental clarity and productivity, to keep you there. Anyway, it's not going to be the same for everyone else, and that's good to embrace that and acknowledge that. That's wonderful. If your mentality when watching her video is, yes, but that doesn't apply to me, it's not the same, I'm not going to have the 50,000 hours. Okay, but maybe you have 35,000 hours, maybe you have 40,000 hours. Like, maybe that's not the way you need to look at it with the whole, 50,000 hours over a lifetime. Maybe you need to break it down into a smaller increment, something that's a little bit more tangible. But regardless, this person is choosing to look at it in the most negative way. And, they weren't bashing what she was saying or anything like that, but they were kind of refusing to embrace, no, we don't want that sound, sorry. Refusing to embrace this good advice, and like choosing to look at it like, well, that won't work for me. When I guarantee to some degree it would work for this person if they were simply open-minded enough to say, like, to acknowledge, yes, okay, I am spending my time on X, Y, and Z, and maybe X is not necessary, Y can be structured a little differently, and Z can be prioritized. However you want to look at it, like, it can absolutely work to some degree in some fashion for everyone, I believe. And, again, their comment, they were like, well, and I think that right there tells me so much about this individual, where they likely won't have the accomplishments and the fulfillment to the degree that maybe they would try to tell themselves that that's what they're seeking, because there's a mental block there. And it's not that they'll forever be this way, but they need to get out of their own way. They need to recognize that mental block is there, and that there is tremendous opportunity for them to take control and kind of claim their time, claim their focus, develop systems to implement so they can have a better grasp on it. And Izzy was talking a lot about this, like this revenge behavior at the end of the night, and I am so, this, even before I heard this term, for years I've actually been describing this, saying like, this is how I am with my art at the end of the night, where I'm like, I just worked all day for someone else, and now I'm going to go home and I'm going to claim my time. This is me time, and I sit down and draw for hours. And I was like, that's a strength, and to some degree it is, because I was still doing the thing that other people would often say, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I had time to do that. Also, I just realized I'm still wearing this, and yeah, this just opens my nasal passages, and whatever, I like it. And I had a friend watch some videos the other day, and she just goes, what the fuck is on your nose? And so anyway, deal with it, but still love you. But so I was trying to look at that like, ooh, look at me, I'm claiming this time, and there's strength in that. That is a positive in a way, but to recognize how that was impacting my life, right? I'm now staying up late to do that thing, which is making me, it's throwing my sleep schedule off. It actually negatively affected my relationship that I was in. It caused me to wake up the next day not feeling rested, and also a little bit behind because I was sleeping in. And then it's just like this perpetual cycle, this domino effect. And lately I've been trying to be hyper conscious of that and make not only healthier moves to combat that, but in adding that structure, I'm also being way more productive. And that is deeply fulfilling, because I'm at the end of the night, I'm drawing, I'm illustrating my second comic book, and I'm looking and I'm going, okay, my art is getting better, but holy crap, I just finished 2 pages this week, where in the 3 months prior, I did half a page or maybe a page, and that's a good feeling. But yeah, this person who wants to say like, but like, that's not the same for me. You're right. You are right. But it doesn't mean you have to dismiss yourself or write yourself off in this way and saying like, well, this works for you, it's just not going to work for me. There's no solution for me, because that, I think, is an incredibly weak mentality and a weak frame of mind. And that will keep you stuck exactly where you are, and probably somewhere you don't want to be. Hence why you have such a negative mentality to begin with. Anyway, years ago, we're talking over a decade ago, I was at a gym in Boston talking to this woman, and I was like getting ready for, I think, my first men's physique competition or something like that. And I was talking to this woman. I was at a gym. I worked there. She was a member, but she was like, everybody knew her. She was there all the time, sweet lady. And we were talking about competing, and like competing on a professional level or a high level. And she was like, well, not everyone can do that. And I was like, true. I said, but, I think if it's really important to you and you want to commit to that, and like, you have to build a lifestyle that supports that. But if you really want to do that and go somewhere with it, I said, I think most people, it's more up here. But if you really wanted to do that, like, it's doable. And she was like, well, no, it's not realistic for most people. The time and the this and the that, obligations, whatever. And I said, right, I hear you, but I disagree. Excuse me. I said, I think if this is a priority for you, you will find a way to do it. And she stood firmly in her stance of, no, it just won't work for some people. And I stood firmly in my stance of, if you want to do it, you will find a way. Maybe that means you don't see your friends as much. Maybe that means you have to be selfish sometimes for some of these pursuits. And I'm not saying that that is necessarily like the right way to do it. I'm just being realistic, saying if you want to make it happen, it could be a side business, it could be competing, it could be making art, it could be any number of these different things. If you want to make it happen, and you can believe that it is doable, we're talking about something that is realistic, not, oh, I'm gonna fly without any kind of assistance from an aircraft. Okay, well, no. But if you want to compete, if you want to do whatever other task, there will be sacrifices, there will be changes that are necessary. But yes, I do think the majority of people can do the thing if they recognize that and they make the decisions, they make the changes. And you have to carve out a space, you have to build, right? Maybe it means you get up earlier and you go train before work because you have to pick up your kids after work, or whatever it is. There's a way to do it if it's really that important to you. And that does not mean it's easy. That does not mean it's easy at all in these various pursuits and tasks. But it was just eye-opening to me because my stance was firmly rooted in, if you want to do it, find a way, because you can find a way. And she was very much in the, well, no, it's just not attainable or realistic for everybody. And respectfully, I will say our respective mentalities were also reflected in our physicality. And it just showed me a lot where I was like, okay, I now know more about you, psychologically, and just internal, there's a correlation with the internal and the external. And, I didn't argue the point further. It wasn't necessary, but it just showed me oh, okay, some people just don't see it that way. Some people just see it as well, no, I can't. And they don't want to even challenge that. So if you find yourself having wisdom or good advice or something offered to you freely, something that you could greatly benefit from, like changing your lifestyle in some capacity, and your immediate response is to challenge it and say, yeah, that's wonderful, but not for me. Not for me as in I'm not interested. It's, well, it won't work for me because I'm different. I'm special. Try to catch yourself. Last point. I used to work in the supplement industry. Could not tell you how many people were very out of shape, obese, extremely unhealthy, and they would want to buy the latest, greatest fat loss pill, whatever the supplement was. This was way before the injectable crap that's out there. And they would, I'd have these 50-year-old, 5'2", 350-pound women coming into this supplement store, and they're like, well, I've tried that one, I've tried that one, I've tried that one, and I've tried that one. None of them work for me. And I'm like, okay, well, they all say, diet and exercise as well. And I think you're trying to build a house and you have not poured a foundation here at all. You're just leaning 2x4s together, wondering why they're not staying. You don't have nails, you're not cutting the boards to fit. You don't have a concrete foundation to build on. And she knows, and I say she, there's one woman I'm picturing, but it's all of them. They knew that they weren't doing all of the necessary steps. And that's the point. She didn't want a result. And Alex Hormozy spoke about this with his past in the fitness industry. He says, do you want to be right? Do you want to be skinny or do you want to be right? And these people, she didn't want to be healthier. She didn't want to lose weight. For her, it was easier to say, well, I've tried all of the best things and I'm the exception. They don't work for me. Meanwhile, that same woman would walk over to the shelf and grab a $120 bottle of crap because it's the newest one that has the same exact claim but written a little bit differently, you know? And it's like, all right, well, I'm going to try this. But again, she didn't actually want the result she thought she wanted, which was to lose body fat. She wanted to try the thing, and that way, when she saw no change, because she wasn't actually making an effort other than taking a few pills, she could dismiss it and say, well, I've tried, and it just didn't work for me. I'm the exception to the rule. So, do not be that person.